Hello and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. I'm Captain Rick Riles. Hey, we are kicking it into the new year. Cal 26 is off and running, and I got to tell you, so far, some of the fish reports have been fantastic. I know up here in Northeast Florida, we've got big sea bass and triggerfish like I haven't seen in a long time. I don't know how long they'll stay, but limits have been easy to get of good quality fish. But here's our plan for this evening. We are going to make a quick stop in Nosara, Costa Rica, because Craig Sutton sent me more blue marlin videos this week. Then we're going up to Northeast Florida, check in with Captain David Bories, and work our way all the way down the East Coast. Jim Ross, all the way down through Ray Rocher and into Alamorada. Come up through the West Coast, starting in 10,000 Islands with Steve Dahl, and all the way out the Panhandle until we have covered the entire state and we can tell you where every fish is and what they're biting. And here's something else I want to know about tonight, and I'm blaming this on me because I had to look in the mirror. When you have guests on your boat, do you give them a safety briefing? God, I don't always. I'm not sure everybody knows where the life jackets are. If you've got a regular crew, it might be a good idea for you to fit them each to a life jacket and put their name on it. Just saying, seconds count. When things go wrong on the ocean, they go wrong in a hurry. Our first stop this evening is going to be in Nosara, Costa Rica, my blue marlin destination. I tell you what, when I want to get one, which is, oh, by the way, all the time, but when I can scrape my pennies together, I'm headed to Nosara. Let's check in with Craig Sutton and see what's happening down there. Craigie, how big was that marlin you sent me? I think it was day before yesterday.
Ricky, I think I've sent you 3 or 4 of them, but they're all, we're getting a lot of them in that 3 to 4, 450, 500 pound range. And we've had a couple of them that, pretty sure they're 600 pound fish.
Woo!
That one, I'll tell you, the one right at the boat was doing the windshield wiping routine. But you see the yellowfin.
Oh my gosh. I've seen so many people send me pictures of their 100-pound yellowfin. None of them looked like that one. That one was a 100-pound yellowfin.
Oh, yeah. And I'm not being ugly to other people, but I see a lot of charter companies call those 100-pound yellowfin or 60-pound mahi. And
oh, yeah.
And when you put them on a scale, and keep in mind that, when I first started fishing, I had to sell my catch to pay for my habit. So I know what a 40-pound mahi looks like.
Sure.
And we've caught some big ones this year. They have kind of backed off. We're catching a few, but not the big ones. But those big yellowfin are a welcome sight.
Man, that thing was gorgeous. It was gorgeous. Craigie, will things stay good right now, right on up until what is our summer, their winter? Or do you look for a lull sometime in between?
When that moon came around last week, we had a little bit of drop off in the bite, but we still caught marlin. We just didn't get the big numbers. We're getting onesies and twosies. But then 3 days later, it just let back up. But even the day of the full moon was still a pretty good day.
Mm-hmm.
There's one marlin, a couple sails, and a yellowfin and a mahi. Nothing big on either one of those. But that's any day you catch a marlin, that's a good day.
Well, see, you go by a totally different scale than I do. Any day I catch a billfish is a good day. Sailfish count.
Yeah, and I like them too, but boy, that marlin.
Oh yeah,
we're catching some roosters too, and a couple small cabera last week. But the weather's perfect. We're wide open. I mean, we don't. I've turned down probably 8 or 9 people in the last week on wanting to fish for January. I'm like, you're a few months late.
Well, my daughter says you and I have to have a talk about this summer.
Okay.
We want the whole family down there, so we'll have to see what we can do. But,
we've got those new options for your accommodations, so that might, give you a place to be by yourself, or not maybe completely by yourself, but a section where you can be real close to each other and give a little different vibe, and you'll have your own pool.
And you can loan me some money.
Sure.
Okay. Well, we got a deal. Hey, Craig, thanks so much. We appreciate it. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Absolutely. But wait a minute. What about the question?
Oh, you know what? I didn't know the Costa Rican regulations, so I didn't ask. And here's what the question for this week is. I want to know if your charters get a safety briefing before they leave the dock, if everybody knows where the life jackets are, et cetera.
Well, first off, Costa Rican government inspects all charter boats,
Good.
and they do it twice a year now, which I really like that. And I like the way they're very proactive on the resources and enforcing their rules and regulations. But no, we don't. We really don't. We probably should,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't. I think that's a good idea, but I mean, we probably should, but we don't.
Yeah, and if I showed up there tomorrow and William started going through a safety briefing, I'd be like, shut up, let's get the lines in the water, can we? Yeah, I know what you mean.
Crank them jammies up and let's go.
You got it. Thank you, Craig.
All right, brother.
Talk with you next week. Our thanks to Craig Sutton for a great report on Nosara, where it seems like the blue marlin just keep on coming. Now, let's stop up in Northeast Florida and check in with our buddy David Voorhees. David, how are you?
Hey, Ricky. Doing pretty good, buddy. Just got off the water just moments ago, and it was a tough day of fishing. No doubt about it. The water temperature has dropped about 2 to 3 degrees. That has a tendency to sort of slow the fish down.
To what? What is the temperature now?
We saw 68.
Okay. Yeah.
We saw even lower than we saw some 67s, we saw some 68s and some 69s.
Mm-hmm.
But considering it was 72, 73 just a few days ago, that's at least a 3-degree temperature drop. That's quite a bit. But the water had gotten a little dirty. We've got some wind up here in Northeast Florida. We had a really nice northeaster blowing for about a day and a half. And the intercoastal along the eastern shore runs north and south. So when you get those north winds that blow really hard, they tend to really chop up the intercoastal, and they can stir up the water. But the good thing is it usually doesn't take long for all that to settle back down and clear back up. But I mean, we managed to get some fish today, but we had to work really hard at it. It seemed like it was one of those days where you went to a spot and, at best you were lucky to pull 3 fish off of it. And then some of the spots where we actually knew there were fish there, they just refused to bite. So, made for a tough day of fishing, but we still managed some quality reds, a few good trout, some black drum, and a sheephead. So, as far as the numbers games go, they were able to bring some nice fish home to the dinner table. So, but it was definitely a lot of work for their charter captain compared to what it has been.
I was going to say, let's not complain too much. You've had some pretty easy living here for a while when it comes to catching fish.
Yeah, it's been easy fishing. It has been actually very easy fishing. But you know what? I mean, we got another little cold snap. This could be our coldest snap we see this winter. I'm curious to see what happens. They're actually talking about a freeze at the beach, so we'll see how that transpires, and just take what the weather gods give us, and hope for the best. But it was nice to see some decent trout today. It was pick up a few reds here and there, and then have a black drum or 2 in there, and a sheephead. So it was a mixed bag of fish, which can a lot of times, variety, like I said, is the spice of life. So a lot of times up here in Northeast Florida, you're going to get that inshore variety.
Oh yeah, and that's when your 1 red fish per person really comes into play. If it's 1 red fish and a sheephead and a trout and a flounder, and it makes for
you got plenty of fish,
right?
Yeah.
Makes for a much nicer day. And David, you mentioned that 3 or 4 degree water drop temperature, and what a lot of people don't understand is we live in a realm from, we'll see 20 degrees quite often here in North Florida, and we'll see 100 degrees. Well, that's 80 degrees. For us, very cold water to fish in is 50 degrees.
Right.
And very hot water for us to fish in is 80 degrees. And oh, by the way, they can't change clothes. We get to change clothes and stay comfortable. So where you might say a 3-degree drop, that's not a big deal. Well, that's a much bigger drop than it is on the human scale to the fish. So obviously it's going to affect them somehow.
I had to, and the thing I explained to my young anglers today was, what the cold water does, these fish still have to eat, but hey, instead of pulling into the Burger King drive-in, every day, now they don't have to do it for about twice a week, So, it changes their feeding habit. It slows their metabolism down. So, they're still going to feed. You're going to find some fish that feed. And my game plan was, go up onto the flats. We had the right tide. Everything was right today. The only thing that wasn't right was that water temperature, and that made a big difference. But we had the right tide, the right moon phase, the right time of day, and we lacked the amount of sunlight we needed to sort of bake those mud flats and sort of get those fish up on the flats. But we had a hard time finding the fish in the shallows today. Majority of our fish came out of deep water.
Give them a few days, and they'll even adjust to that temperature, and things will get better for you. David, let me ask you a quick question. Do you give your customers a safety briefing when you get on the boat, and do they know where the life jackets are and such?
Oh, you know what? I used to have, that's such a good question, Ricky. And I must confess, I'm not good at that. I should do better. After looking at your question, I was like, you know what? I need to get better at that. I used to have little decals on my boat, stickers. One said where the life jackets were, and the other one said this is where the fire extinguisher was. But no, I need to be better at that. Most of us inshore flats guys, one thing I do tell guys, hey, if you fall off the boat, just remember to stand up, okay? Most of the time we're fishing in water that's, 2 to 3 feet deep. So we don't think about that. But you know what? We do get cold water. We do get situations where you could get in trouble. So I think I'm going to start showing everybody. I think what I'll do from now on is just have my hatches open so that they can see the life jackets when they get on board.
Yep.
And this is where the life jackets are. Here's the fire extinguisher. And, we have whistles here if you need to, use for signaling or whatever.
Yep. And a first aid kit. And the most important thing of all, the one thing you can never go to sea without. Hello? A 5-gallon bucket. A 5-gallon bucket.
I don't have that. I don't have that problem. Well, I'm always close to public bathrooms. So
no, not that, David. There ain't no bilge pump ever made worked as good as a scared man with a 5-gallon bucket.
That is true. But in my boat, I've got to get something smaller than that to get down into the bilge to pump it out. But I do have a manual pump.
Good.
I have learned my lessons when it comes to that. And it's good to have a hand pump, a manual pump for your bilge situation and stuff like that. There's a lot of things, you learn over the years that you absolutely want to have on your boat. And that's a good idea. You got to be able to bail water one way or the other.
Get it out of there somehow. Cap, we appreciate it so much. And as always, please tell me we can check with you next week.
Absolutely, Ricky.
I look forward to it. Thank you, David. Our thanks to David Voorhees for a great Northeast Florida report. Weather chilled down a little bit on him, and the fishing got a little tougher. Let's see if it's the same way in East Central by checking in with Jimmy Ross. Jim, how are you?
Doing good today, Rick.
Good. So am I. How about this? I turned 73 today.
Oh, well, happy birthday. I did not realize it was your birthday.
I am 73 years old, and I still lie awake half the night before a fishing trip. Is that a good thing? I don't know.
When it comes to the point where I don't get excited about going fishing or hunting, I might as well just be done,
Yeah, don't say that. I
just tell
I
the
still
Lord,
am,
call
and
me on up, because if I can't get excited about that, then
I give God the glory every time I get excited, and thank him. Thank him for putting that in me. You're not kidding. Hey, tell me about your fishing this week.
So it's been interesting. We had this cool down and this north wind, and even though today, Tuesday, it really warmed up. They were actually calling for a high of somewhere between 70 and 72. It got up to 77. They totally missed the report for today. But what was interesting is the fish apparently listened to the report and not paid attention to the weather.
Hate it when they do that.
I know it. I had a double boater today with Captain Alex Huey, and he actually did find one tree that he got 10 small redfish out from under over in the Banana River area. But all of the trout, all of the redfish that we had been catching along those residential canals and shorelines, man, it was a struggle. I mean, we had 2 reds, we had 1 sheephead, and we had 2 ladyfish. So for those of you guys and gals out there that think that, just because we're guides, we go out there and we crush it every day, doesn't always happen.
Nope.
It didn't happen for me. Didn't really. I mean, Alex did better than me. He had 5 more fish than I did, but it was still not a banner day by any means. And what was really interesting today, Rick, is I got to the point where I was like, okay, what's the deal with the trout? Because trout are typically your most reliable fish that you can go fish for. You can find them in the shallows, you can find them in the deep, you can find them on that transition somewhere in between on virtually any given day. We did not, in 4 hours today, we did not catch a single trout, and Alex his group did not catch a single trout. And that to me is absolutely shocking. I have absolutely no explanation for it. Because generally, even though the conditions are tough, you can still get those little, 12, 14, 15-inch trout to bite on a jig or a live shrimp. And we didn't have any of that today. So that's the way that today went. Now, over the past week, since our last report, the offshore bite has been pretty good. There's been some wahoo showing up, which, is a little later than what we typically get them. But the guys that got out did catch some wahoo. The swordfish bite is still pretty good as well. So for the guys that like to go deep drop, and when the conditions allow, there's plenty, I wouldn't say plenty, you're getting multiple opportunities a day to catch swordfish on those deep drop rigs. So there's 2 things that I would say when this next cold front goes by that I would go look for. That would be the 2 things that I would look for if I was an offshore guy.
Jim, you night fished for swords in your youth, didn't you?
Yes.
Wasn't that more fun?
I've only day fished for them once.
Me too.
Well, the Siloom sticks, setting baits out at, a float line that basically might have gone down 50 feet, one at 100, one at 300, lights on the 300, Siloom sticks and that kind of thing, in the squids and on the rigs. It was a lot of fun. And what was really neat was when you hooked up and you watched that thing come to the surface and that Siloom stick jumps out of the water 100 yards away from you. That was super exciting.
It was super exciting. And Jim, we had the rods and reels in our hands. We were either doing it stand up or in the chair. This silliness with pushing the button, I'm not 100% sold on that. I think I'd rather swordfish at night than in the daytime.
It was definitely more interactive. That's for sure.
The swords are smaller.
Today's sword fishing.
The nighttime swords seem to be smaller, and it is, kind of spooky being out there at night. But having said all that, if you don't get the evil night wind, it can be gorgeous out there at night.
Yeah, it can be just some of the best nights. And talk about seeing some stars.
Oh, my gosh. You've never seen stars unless you've been 60 miles offshore at night.
That is the truth, Rick. That is the truth.
Yeah. Let me ask you a quick question before you go. Do you do a safety briefing with your people before they leave and show them where the life jackets are and such?
I'm really bad about not doing that every single time. Especially with my repeat customers. They already know where the stuff is at, but I really should do that with every single customer. And I'm going to admit, I am not as good, not as diligent with that as I should be. If I have kids on the boat, absolutely that happens. But like today, had 3 adult anglers. Guy's got his own 50-foot Viking. The other guy had his own
Shoo.
30, I don't know, like a 33 Valhalla or something. And I'm like, I just didn't do it. And you know what? It doesn't matter what they have for a boat or how much boating experience they have. They don't know where the safety gear is when they're on my boat. They might know where it is on theirs, but not mine. So I'm going to say that I need to be more diligent about that. But yes, I do occasionally do that, especially with women and children on the boat. There's definitely a safety briefing.
Yep. Gotcha. Good idea. Jim, we appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I'm looking forward to it, Rick.
Thanks, Jimmy. Our thanks to Jim Ross for a great East Central report. Now, let's move down to Miami and check in with my buddy Ray Roaster, who may be in Guatemala or may be in Hispaniola or maybe anywhere. Where are you, Ray Roaster?
Well, I'm in Miami today, but I'll be in Costa Rica tomorrow.
That ain't bad, Cap. That ain't bad. Golly, now you headed down there for a tournament?
Yeah, the Rockstar tournament. It's out of Capos. The boats in Los Sueños can also fish it, but it's based in Capos. So I've never fished it before. I'm excited to go, and I'll be on the Lights Out, which is the boat I fished all the SFC tournaments and the White Marlin Open on this year. So kind of like my home away from home. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's outstanding. Now, what a great deal. That's funny because my family just started the planning phases of a trip to Costa Rica this year ourselves. Tell me how the fishing's been in Miami.
It has been tougher than normal. I hate to give you bad news, but that's
okay.
part of, maybe making better plans is not running towards the fire. So it's just been tough. I mean, there's little flurries. One boat will catch a couple sails or a handful of dolphin or tunas, but by and large, I don't know what's going on, but it's just not enough fish for the conditions, the bait, and the effort. I fished a couple days ago with a group. We only did a 3/4 day, but we started out kite fishing. We bought some goggle eyes and pilchards, then we caught threadfin cigars, runners, pinfish. We went and put the kite up and sat at a great spot for like an hour, hour and a half, no bites. So we went out to, there's a little hump in front of, not even a king, nothing. And then we went to a hump in front of Government Cut where we catch some tunas and bottom fish. And we went out there and no tunas, no bottom fish, did not even have a yellow eye bite. Current was ripping, which makes it a little tougher to fish there. And so then I went off and dropped for tiles, thinking, let's at least get dinner. And never had a tile bite and trolled in, never had a bite trolling, and then hit some wrecks and never. We had one cuda chop off.
God.
And then I trolled for kingfish down the reef on the way home, and we hooked about a 10-pound dolphin and pulled him off right before we gapped him. And that was our day. And the other boat was a 2-boat trip, and our other boat was filling in for the 34 because we're still not done on that boat. But the boat that filled in for me caught a mutton, and that was hitting a bunch of wrecks. And one mutton. Gee. And it's just that. So now you understand, it's for all that effort in having goggle eyes and threads and pilchards and cigars and runners and pinfish. It's very abnormal not to have half a dozen of something. Bonitas, kings, cudas, dolphin, tuna, something. Maybe a sail. Sure. It just was really slow. So I took a group. The next group I took to the Everglades. It was a dad, son, and grandson. And we just had the greatest time. The Everglades are a kind of a floodplain / drought area. So we're approaching that drought time. So all the marsh is getting swept into the canals. So that just really concentrates the amount of bass. And, we caught peacock bass, Oscars, garfish, bluegill, largemouth. So, what we lacked in the saltwater arena, we made up for in the freshwater.
Yep. And I'm so glad when you give me a report like that, because the next time I come in feeling like the only captain in the world that ever went 13 hours for one bonita, I won't feel quite so bad. Because I've always thought.
I tell you the bad stories and the good.
There you go. I've always thought that the minute that bait well gets full enough, okay, the hardest part of my day's over. Now we got it
Yep.
made. We're good. Doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes I come home with the same number of live baits I left with.
Yeah. Well, my fish cleaning period was very short that day.
Yep.
It's kind of a shammy the bridge and go home.
I can believe that. Cap, we appreciate it so much. As always, please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yes, sir.
Will you be in
Looking
Costa
forward to
Rica?
No, I'll be back. Should be back Monday.
How many days is the tournament?
I think it's only a 2-day tournament. I think 1 day of pre-fishing and 2 days of tournament, Friday, Saturday, and then we'll be home. I don't know if we're fishing Sunday also. It's my first year there, so I got a lot to learn. But I'll know Monday exactly what happened.
That's cool. Super cool. Thanks, Ray. We appreciate it as always. And please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it.
Thanks,
See
Cap.
you.
Good luck. Our thanks to Ray Rocher for a great Miami report. Let's hit Alamorada. I'll bet it ain't 50 degrees down there, and check in with one Brandon Storn. How we doing, Skip?
It's 75.
Oh, shut
75
up,
degrees
shut
currently.
up, shut up. Take that 75 degrees and stick it in your ear, okay?
Yeah.
We don't want to hear
It's
about
about
that.
the temperature. I stick it in my room. It's about 75 degrees.
I hear you. Tell me how your fishing's been.
Man, fishing's been good. We went out to the Gulf and we caught the what I like to declare as the Islamorada Golf Slam, or maybe the Bean Sport Fishing Slam. We caught triple tails, permits, and cobias as the customers ordered. Man, there really was no shortage of them either. There were just tens of thousands of permit. We caught one really big cobia that we kept, about a 45-pounder.
It's a good
We
one.
played with a couple other ones. Yep, and caught a 24-inch triple tail, which nowadays is a good one.
That's a very good one. Yep.
Yep. And then the backcountry has been kind of slow, but that's because we kind of don't know what's been going on with this weather. Like a couple of days it's cold, a couple of days it gets hot. Been lots of, back and forth, but I think this next cold snap we're about to get is really going to shake that up for the backcountry. Maybe the red drum, black drum sheepshead will bite a little bit more, and maybe snooks will try to sun themselves up on the shallow flats in the middle of the days. We kind of need something a little bit to change in the backcountry, but the Spanish mackerel and the mangrove snapper bite just outside of Florida Bay has been really good as well. So that's another good option back there. Out front, they're catching a good amount of sailfish, blackfin tunas, mackerel, kings and zeros, wahoos. So there's been a nice mix offshore.
Brandon, that's a very good report, but all of us that live north of I-4 never want to hear you say cold snap again. Okay? 68 is not a cold snap, Brandon.
We need it. We need it.
Well, we've got it, so don't worry about it. It'll be there eventually.
Us in Alamorada, we always catch the tarpon and the permit and the bonefish. We just want to see some black drums and some sheepshead and some red drums. We just want to see something a little different.
I'll send you a redfish. You send me a triple tail. We'll be even. How's that?
No deal. No deal.
Yeah,
I'll keep my
didn't
triple
think so.
tails, but I'll trade you a snook for a redfish. How about that?
Okay, I'd do that too. All right, buddy.
Yeah, that's a little different for us.
Hey, thanks for the report. I got a quick question for you. Do you give your customers a safety briefing when they get on the boat, show them where the life jackets are, et cetera?
You know what? I really don't. 9 times out of 10, if we're going down, I would tell people, I've had a couple of times people ask me, oh, by the way, where are your life jackets? I was like, oh, they're right here. Very easy to get to. I was like, but if we're going down, just get out and stand.
Yeah, well, where you fish, you can. Yep.
When we're in water that's too deep to stand, it doesn't even matter because the sharks will get to you before help does.
Hey,
it's either shallow enough where you can stand or it's deep enough where it don't matter because the sharks will get you.
Man, Brandon, they're getting worse every day. I know exactly what you mean. Buddy, we
This is
appreciate
probably the worst part of Florida.
Yep, we appreciate it as always. Please let me know we can check with you next week.
Absolutely.
You got it. Thanks, Bean. Our thanks to Brandon Storn for a great report out of Alamorada, where a frigid cold snap has driven the temperature all the way down to 74 degrees. Now let's move west and check in with our buddy Steve Dahl in 10,000 Islands. Steve, how are you?
Cold.
Yes, I understand. What is cold down there?
Well, today it's not terrible, but Thursday it's supposed to be lows in the upper 30s. So that's
What?
pretty chilly for us. Yeah.
The upper 30s and 10,000 islands?
Yeah. 30. They're calling for 39. So with the wind chill, who knows? But,
Choo! That'll be chilly. I take it.
Yeah.
Can I assume you're not fishing Thursday, or you are?
I am not fishing. It's going to
Yeah.
blow 15 to 25 with 35
Yeah.
mile an hour gusts. I think
Yeah.
I'm staying home.
Yeah, that keeps me at the dock every time. I promise you
Yeah.
that. Tell me how your fishing's been.
Well, leading up to it, it's been good. Today in particular, classic pre-front bite. Fish are biting. Good lunar cycle. I mean, things are good. Redfish, we're definitely chewing. Snook have been pretty active with the kind of stable weather that we've had. They tend to like, that really good stable weather. We really haven't had a cold front in probably, almost 2.5, 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And, the one thing we're doing a lot more of right now is kind of sight fishing. We're noticing that our tides are a little bit lower than normal. And it's kind of a cool phenomenon because we also have a drought in our area, and we get a lot of freshwater runoff from the Everglades, and the Everglades are really dry right now. They're about 19 inches down.
Mm.
So we're not getting that freshwater runoff that we normally do, and you could really correlate that. We think it's about anywhere from 9 to 12 inches off every tide cycle right now. So very odd phenomenon, but we've kind of seen that before too in droughts too, where it actually does affect these brackish water areas and stuff. So we got a lot more skinny water than we've ever had. And that's it's also happening obviously at in dry season in winter when we obviously have our lower tide cycles in the morning hours. So be a little cautious out there, but if you have some smaller boats, the fly guys are just cleaning house right now, which is awesome. But if you like sight fishing, now's the time to find your buddy with a skiff and get out there, because the redfish and snook fishing has been pretty awesome.
I got to tell you, I got into sight fishing up here because the fish literally on low tides swim around with their backs out of the water, the redfish. And I always take my fly rod, and I've had so many guys say, "Oh, why do you want to make it tougher? Isn't it tough enough already?" And I'm like, dude, the fly rod is the ultimate weapon in this situation.
Yeah, 100%.
People don't understand. First off, in the wintertime, the fish are more apt to eat a tiny, tiny bait. And second off, you can lay it out a foot in front of him. And if he doesn't see it, you can instantly pull it back and lay it out another foot in front of him. I mean, there's none of this reeling all the way in and casting again and all that. You just, I think fly fishing, as far as sight fishing is concerned, is the ultimate.
It is the ultimate, and no doubt. Not that you can't catch them on, conventional tackle, but the reality is, just to your point, that small presentation, it's a lot more stealthy. But a bit more work and definitely a lot bigger skill set. But, to me, it's the pinnacle for sure.
No, I don't disagree with you at all. Hey, Steve, do you give your people a safety briefing, show them where the life jackets are and such when you start your day in the morning?
You know what, Rick, like I've been at it a long time, and I do it, just because I think it's, it follows suit with our company, what we do. But it's pretty alarming to know that people don't know much about anything. You can't take for granted that if something happens to you, they know how to get back,
right? Or
even run a boat or kill switches and things like that. It's really, we take a lot for granted. I think it was a big eye opener for me the last 11 years of just understanding like how much people truly know and don't know, and how serious customers want to really take it. You don't know if you're gonna have a problem until you have one, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
And so yeah, definitely, and being perfectly honest, prior to that, no, I really was very loose with it. Especially with my repeat customers that had heard the speech before. But you know how your boat is. Sometimes you shift some things around, and life jackets are in a different place, or things like that. You got a new VHF, and maybe that's a different way to operate it, or so I kind of go over all that, on my charters now. Like if something were to happen to me, I actually have our main marina's phone number, on a little P-Touch label right on my console. If something happens to me, call this number. After you call 911, maybe say that somebody can come and get us. things like that, little things, but yeah, definitely take it a lot more serious than I used to. So,
Hey, real quick before you go, Steve, I don't want to belabor this
yeah.
point, but have they found out anything about those guys that went out of Fort Myers in the Freeman?
Hey, unfortunately they haven't. And, the big telltale thing is the boat, when the Coast Guard found the boat, it was actually, the ignitions were on.
Yeah.
And so the means the boat was probably running. They had fishing rods out, but no trolling gear. Nothing that would show that they were actually, trolling baits. So everyone can speculate, I think the consensus, and nobody's an expert in this, because of the unknown, but, um, if the boat was in gear, there's a fear that maybe someone was using the restroom,
Fell
and
overboard. Yeah.
or both of them were using the restroom at the same time, and that's a big no-no, as we all know.
Yeah.
Going spot to spot, maybe idling on a new wreck or reef. They had bottom fishing rods out, or ready,
Mhm.
in the rod holders and stuff, or in the gunner rod holders. So, my guess is they were moving, spot to spot. I'm no expert, but my guess is maybe somebody was, using the restroom and fell overboard, and maybe his buddy tried to grab him and also fell overboard. But awful
Yeah.
shame.
Awful.
Awful.
I got to tell you, when we were kids here, our commercial boats would make, somewhere between 8 and 12 knots. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
10-knot boats was going out at night. Now, keep in mind,
Mm-hmm.
back then, we didn't have a GPS and a track and all that. All we had
Right.
was Loran. And the mate said to the captain, I'm going to go to the back and take a pee. And he says, okay. And 1 hour later, the captain notices that he had never come back in the wheelhouse.
Oof.
So he goes and looks for him, and he's gone.
Yeah.
And the captain turned around, ran a quarter of a mile, shut everything off, and yelled. Ran
Mm-hmm.
a quarter of a mile, shut everything off, and yelled. 8 miles back, he found him. Can you
Oh
imagine
my.
the odds of that with nothing but dead reckoning steering?
Wow.
What a gift that was. But there's a
Yeah,
lesson in there.
there is, and again, we don't know till it happens, but it's you cannot take anything for granted when you're on the water. I don't care if you're inshore or offshore. So many people think they're safe because they can see land, and accidents happen there as well. So just whatever you can do to mitigate those risks. That's the reality of it.
Well, think about those of us that could drown in 5.5 feet of water. We don't need to elaborate on that point.
No, you're right. 100%.
All right, Cap, we appreciate it ever so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Sounds good, Rick. Be
Thanks,
well.
Steve. Our thanks to Steve Dahl for a great report from 10,000 Islands. Now, let's move up into Southwest Florida and check in with Greg Stamper. Greg, how is Snook Stamp Charters doing?
He's doing pretty good. He even got some nice snook this week.
Oh,
So
good.
overall, the fishing report is very similar to last week. We had a few days where it was a little bit tougher, but as the water warmed up, so did that fishing. And we got in the back bays and did quite well. We got a lot of redfish this week. Nothing gigantic, but we got some fish that were probably 26, 27 inches as our big ones.
That's a
And a
fine
lot of
fish,
small.
Cap.
That's a great size. But we also got a lot of fish that were in that 16, 17 inch up to about 22, 23. That was the most common size that we caught all week long.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we were on the flats looking for those trout. Now, my area just hasn't had a lot of good trout. The reports from the guys up in the Pine Island area and near the Charlotte Harbor area have been a lot better for trout. They seem to have no issues. And I think it's just because we haven't seen a big push of bait going into our back bays yet, which is kind of weird for this time of year. But, I bet it'll all change up soon. I know we're going to get some pretty cool weather coming up, so that might either hurt or help the cause. Now, those of us that did fish near shore, a couple guys that I talked to, they still did really well this week. I don't know how those permit are going to react when that water drops about 15 degrees, but so far this year, those permit and those cobia on those wrecks and reefs have been going really good for the guys out there fishing with either live crabs or hand-picked shrimp. And some of these guys are doing it in the middle of the day when it's nice out. And they can see these permit tailing, and they're in 35, 40 feet of water. They're right up on the surface. So they're easy pickings when they do that. And there has been a good amount of kingfish in the local areas, especially in the waters that are about 35, 40 feet out. They've been doing a lot of, some guys are actually trolling, just basically naked ballyhoo or spoons or big plugs, messing around out there. And they're coming across some kingfish that have come in pretty close. So that's another good opportunity for those that like to. Now, we did fish one day when it was windy. We decided we'd stay up in some of the rivers and some of the creeks and just stay out of the wind. We even got a couple little tarpon this week, which is really nice to see in January. Not really something that we expect. But I tell you what, the one fish that's been predominant almost everywhere I've been all week, especially in the shallow water, are those jack crevalles. They're all sizes. Some of them are just those little tiny micros that are half a pound or a pound, and some of the bigger ones have been about 7 or 8 pounds. So no giants, but they are sure fun. They pull a lot of drag, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens after we get this next cold front. We got a pretty cool piece of weather coming through here in the next couple days.
I can't get there till it goes through here, and I promised you it's on the way. Hey, Greg, I got to tell you, and I should be the president of the Jack Crevalle Chamber of Commerce. I mean, they do not get – well, you think about it. It used to be about bringing home a cooler full of redfish or full of trout. And, well, we all know it's not that way anymore. We're keeping fewer fish than we used to. Well, answer me this. What fights harder, a 5-pound Jack Crevalle or a 5-pound trout?
A Jack Crevalle, pound for pound, is the best puller we got in the back bays. Now, the only thing that's close to is if you get out front and those big schools of bonitas come through, or the permit themselves on those wrecks and the reefs, there's not a lot of other those hard tail. I can tell anybody, any fish with that hard tail, that tail doesn't bend, he's going to give you all he's got the whole time.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Jack Crevalle sure does. Have the permit numbers gone up in your area?
It's kind of weird that we have them really all year round, and it's some of the best permit fishing that I've seen, but it's not like the kind of fishing I grew up doing where we're on the flats or in the real shallow water stalking these fish. These fish are all out on our wrecks and our reefs, and they really love it out there. We have a lot of crabs that move through our waters that come out of our bays and flush out there, and I think there's just so much food for them to eat. They're not going anywhere. I don't do as much permit as I used to when I was younger, but every time I go out there, I can rely on getting them, especially if it's a calm day. Then a lot of times, like I said, they come up on the surface and you can see them. I'm not even in a tower boat and I can see them.
Are the cobia getting better for you?
Yeah, cobia has been very consistent over the last, I'd say, 7 to 8 years. It's been one of those fish that a lot of the nearshore guys can almost always run across 1 or 2 every day.
Sweet. Greg, we appreciate it ever so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Oh, absolutely. Tight lines, Ray.
Thanks, buddy. Our thanks to Greg Stamper for a great Southwest report. Now let's move up to West Central and check in with Captain Ray Markham. Raymond, how we doing?
I'm still kicking, and I'm waiting for the breeze to pick up because I think we're supposed to get around 20 to 30 knots by Thursday. Oh, Lordy.
I don't like cold wind. I can be cold, I can be wet, or I can be tired. But if I'm 2 out of 3, we're going home.
I heard you. I heard that. I'm right there with you. I'm the guy that looks like the Michelin Man when it starts getting cold and windy.
Yep, we're getting old, Cap. There ain't no doubt about it. How's your fishing been this week?
Mediocre, honestly.
We've had bad reports all over the state this week.
It's just, I'm going places and talking to people who are like lying in the seawalls. There's 20 guys on the seawall fishing. The only one's catching is this one guy that's fishing for sheep's head.
Right.
Everybody else is just like getting skunked, or they got a short trout here or a lizard fish there, or that kind of stuff. And it just really has not been a stellar week at all. I've got trips, of course, they're pretty much right around the time that we've got this weather coming, which is probably going to put the damper, not being, well, a joke. Well, it's not a joke. I mean, it's going to be a damper too, because they're expecting rain. But the thing is that I don't know. Everybody wants to fish around new and full moons. They're looking for good tides, but
Sure.
we've had some negative tides with winds that are just blowing water out of the bay like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd think, okay, well, that leaves a little bit of water, and that's where the fish are going to be. Well, maybe they're there, but they're just not eating like they should.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes I throw my hands up in the air. I'm thinking, well, what did I do wrong this week? So
I had an old party boat captain that's now retired. In fact, he fished with me one day last week, but he told me, he said, when you call me on the radio, when you just first call me, I can tell exactly how your day is. He said, if you call me one way, I can tell you're killing them. If you call me and sound different, I know what's happening. He said, you're going to have to learn that you can't make them bite, Cap. You can go there and you can show them all the bait you want. You can't make them eat when they don't want to.
Yeah, well, it's kind of tough to chum with artificial lures.
Yeah, that is. It's expensive too.
Yeah.
That's true. That's very true. Well, now wait a minute. You're so highbrowed. You only fish artificials. You don't fish live bait. But will you chum and then throw artificials?
I'm not saying that I never have, because I have.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, this is what leads me to believe that it can make fish stupid. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm out there with some of I don't care if it's the frozen chum, or glass minnow chum, whatever. And I'm on a known spot that I just absolutely know is going to be torn up with mangrove snapper. I drop a chum block over the side of the boat, shake it a few times, and these fish darn near want to get in the boat trying to get to that.
Yep.
Now, I have actually dropped red bear hooks over the side of the boat and caught snapper while I'm doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how stupid these fish are. It's like, hey, that's a hook.
Yep.
Doesn't even look like a sardine or
right,
anything.
Looks like a hook. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Yep. I used to get so tickled at the ICAST shows. There would be a booth right here, and they are selling red hooks. Why are red hooks more effective? Because they imitate blood coming off of the bait, make it look wounded, and they eat it. Now, you go down 3 booths, and here's a guy selling red line. Why is he selling red line? Because red disappears when it gets in the water. Well, somebody's lying, Ray. I mean,
well, okay, here's the truth about that lie. When it starts, the depth starts changing and getting deeper, that color of red appears to diminish or change.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is that the light refracts as it gets deeper. And the more refraction there is with greater depth, the less available light there is.
Sure.
And if you go down there with a scuba tank and a mask and you're looking at a red lure at 50 feet, it might look brown.
Mm-hmm.
It might even look black if the available light is very dim. But if you're in bright, crystal clear water, chances are it's going to look just the same because there's less refraction of light. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
You got a deal. Thank you so much, Ray. Please tell me we can check with you. Oh, I got a quick question for you before you go,
Sure.
too. Do you run through a quick safety briefing with your charters before they get on board, show them where the life jackets are and such?
Usually I do, yes. But the first question that I ask when they get on the boat is, can they swim?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And can you tread water, and for how long? And I rarely remember this, but occasionally I do. And I've been reminded by other captains that I talk to that, it's a good idea to ask if they have any kind of like handicaps,
right,
physical detriment. And honestly, a lot of times that's why I want to review and talk to the people before I fish with them, and I ask those questions. And I know guys that don't. But, and guys want to, book trips through some booking agency, and they don't ask those questions when you don't know what you got when you get on the boat.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
Absolutely. I go through stem to stern. Here's the life jackets. They have whistles on them. You know how to blow on a whistle. And it does have lights on them. So here's how you turn a light on. You just screw the little doohickey in on the front of the light. And, okay, here's the anchor locker up here. There is a throwable in that locker. All you got to do is take this hatch, lift it up, and throw it overboard if that's what's necessary. And, I keep life jackets in the bow of the boat and in the stern of the boat.
Oh, good
so
for you.
No matter which end is underwater, you got something to go to.
Yeah.
So,
Ray, we won't belabor this point, but I have got flares on my boat that you can see from the space station. I mean, I've got flares that could never be missed. They cost me a fortune. Do you know why?
Why?
Because I've been really, really scared before. No,
okay.
If you get really, really scared, you won't take the chance the second time.
I got a real quick flare story for you. Got stopped by the Coasties, and now these were, a little rubber
right.
boat, like a Zodiac full of
Sure.
20-year-old kids. Okay, they pull up wanting to make a point to me, and they go through everything I got. At the time, I was running a 15.5-foot little skinny water flats boat, and of course, 15.5 feet does not actually require that you have a throwable.
Right.
And they went through it, and they're about to write me up because the name of the boat was the Sea Squirt 16.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, you have the registration in your hand. You can read, can't you? I said, it says 15 feet 6 inches.
Yep.
And the guy goes on, okay, well, let's check your flares. And I pull out a bag of flares. Now, I've had this boat now at that point in time, probably 15 years or so. And I've been through 3 or 4 sets of flares that, they go out of date and you replace them, but you don't throw the flares away.
Right. Never.
And they say, and of course, they go into the bag and they're going through and they, well, this is out of date. This is out of date. This is out of date, and on and on. And I said, well, there's really nothing wrong with them. However, there are in-date flares in there. Well, you need to have those readily accessible. And I'm going, well, it's going to be a little tough, but I'll tell you this story. When I used to hunt ducks about 65 years ago, I still have some of those shells, and every single one of them I've ever put in my shotgun still works.
Fires, doesn't it?
And they're made by Olin, the same company that's making these flares. So I'm not throwing any of them away. I'm saving them as spares, and you can call them what you like, in date, out of date, or whatever. The in date ones are in there, but take a look at them. I'm not throwing any of them out. I'm shooting them off.
The scariest situation I've ever been in, the one that I referenced a minute ago, I shot probably 30 flares, of which 25 were out of date. So, and there ain't one that failed. So I keep all my old flares, I promise you. Captain Ray, we appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
If I don't go out and shoot myself in the foot, I'll be back.
Thanks, Ray.
Yep.
All right, thanks to Ray Markham for a great West Central report. Now let's move into the Panhandle, stop around Mexico Beach, and check on Kevin Lanier. Cap, how we doing?
We're cold, Captain Ray. We're cold.
I understand we're not as cold as we're going to be.
That's true.
Man, oh, man, oh, man.
No, we're doing good.
This has got to be the end of winter, doesn't it?
No.
Please? No, don't say that.
No,
don't
we
say
got a whole
that.
nother month at least.
No. But my shorts are getting mothballed. I can't stand this. Tell me how your fishing was this week.
Pretty quiet. There's fish around here to be had. We've had some wind blow through this week, so guys didn't get out as much. The inshore guys, there's still a little bit of trickle, red tide ever so often when you get around. So guys are watching out for that. But there's been pretty good bite on redfish in the bay and along the beach. This is the time of year where we start to look for some early sheep's head and some early pompano, things like that. So, there's activity to be had, and there's, just pick your day, go out into the bay, or if you can slip offshore, you can get out there in the 20-mile range, 18-mile range, and pick up a good load of beeliners. And the sheep's head are going to be along the shoals, which are basically about about 1.5 to 2 miles offshore, and then there's another one about 4 miles offshore that there's a lot of Imbara structures there, so they tend to congregate around those, and that's where you can get your wintertime sea bass. Nothing like you guys get over there, but you can get some legal keepers, and you're going to throw back some red snapper just like you always do around here. But fishing's been good.
I tell you what, I don't know, and I never would have believed this. You couldn't have convinced me of this last year for anything. But we're having a sea bass season like I haven't seen in probably 30 years, Kevin.
That's great.
Yeah, it's just a surprise. It's out of the blue. I mean, the big, fat, black, purple ones are just gorgeous, and they're about as fast as you can go.
It's funny. I had somebody call me about sea bass fishing, and I said, "No, you don't need to fish it here. You need to go on over there to Jacksonville in that area."
Mm-hmm. Yep, we're in just about the end of the run. Believe it or not, there's a marked difference in how many you catch off Jacksonville versus how many you catch off St. Augustine, which is only 30 miles to our south. And it's just funny to me. So if we get this cold front that comes in, your water drops down 2 or 3 degrees, is that going to improve your sheep's head, or your sheep's head going to back off at that?
I think that the bulk of them are still not here yet. They're getting some early ones, so I do think the colder water right now is probably push them out into deeper water, so you're not going to see them as much over the next week. But we always watch for that February. Once we get that February fog, I had a buddy of mine tell me years ago, he said 5 days in a row of fog in February, the Spanish are around the corner.
That's funny. I'll be darned. For some reason, every time I go bottom fishing, that there's a fog that stays with us all day long, the fish bite. And I don't understand the correlation, but it's just the best days I've had bottom fishing are constantly in the fog, which beats me.
I've never been skunked on a foggy day.
No, me neither. No, they're always biting better than normal. Cap, we appreciate it as always. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yeah, Rick, we'll be back with you, and everybody have a great week.
Thank you. Our thanks to Captain Kevin Lanier from Mexico Beach. Now, you can't get out of Florida till you go out through the Panhandle. Let's make a quick stop in Pensacola, Destin, and say hello to Tyler Massey. Tyler, how we doing?
I'm doing good, Rick. How are you guys?
Doing outstanding, my boy. How's your fishing been this week?
Fishing's been pretty good. We've got some still kind of in between cold fronts, like we're going to be like for the next month and a half or two. But between them, we get some really nice weather. A little cooler, but some calm seas and good enough to make it offshore and do a little bit of bottom fishing. Vermilion snapper bite has been really good on all the wrecks. In state waters out there in federal waters, any of the bigger public wrecks are holding vermilion snapper really well. Catching them on cut bait, 2-drop rigs, the basics. And that's, definitely something to put in the box there and, take a few fish back to eat. And then, the same areas, there's been a lot of the big jacks and red snappers and stuff to catch and release as well.
Hey, I got to ask you a question about vermilions. We've seen snapper at their worst, and now we're seeing snapper at their best. And some years are good for gag grouper, and some years are good for triggerfish. Doesn't it seem like fishing doesn't really seem to affect vermilion snapper? I mean, it seems to me like we catch about the same number every year.
Yeah, I don't think you can hurt their population with rod and reel fishing. I think they must reproduce at real high rates, and I think they a pretty young vermilion snapper reproduces. I think their age of reproduction is pretty low. I think some that are maybe even in the 8-9 inch range, they're too small to keep, are probably reproducing. So that's a very just a very plentiful species. I think from the whole state really.
Golly, I wish all our fish were that way. They just, no matter how hard we fish, they just kept coming. Because I know our commercial boats here can keep 1,000 pounds a trip, and they're all making 1, maybe 2-day trips. And it never seems to change. It seems like they're always in the same old places, and usually get them to bite. Tyler, we appreciate it ever so much, buddy. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I'll be here, Rick. We'll see you guys.
All right, thanks. Captain Tyler Massey out of Destin, Florida. And that puts a wrap on our trip around the state tonight. And you know what? You can tell that our guys are honest guys because they almost all had bad fishing reports this week. And when you're saying every week is the best week you've ever seen, you know that something's fishy. But when David Voorhees struggles and Ray Rocher struggles and so many of these top guys say, you know what, it wasn't very good this week, you can count on it being true. But it's all going to change by next week. We got quite a front coming, so don't miss next week's Florida Sportsman Magazine Action Spotter Podcast Live. For Florida Sportsman Magazine, I'll talk to you next week. I'm Captain Rick, and we'll see you on the rip.